A podcast. What is the word?
A podcast by Kalugo.
A podcast. No. By Kalugo.
Yeah.
Hi, Christy here. Welcome back to Today We Tried, a podcast for parents brought to you by Kalugo. This episode is all about friendship, and I've brought in Danielle Jackson, a friendship expert, to chat about how to make and maintain friendships. As you'll hear, I'm very much in need of tips. I spent many days at the playground just hoping someone would come over and say hi and we'd become best friends. Spoiler, this is not a good strategy. And now we're all a little rusty when it comes to social interaction given 2+ years of COVID. The good news is Danielle brings super actionable advice you can really trust, because not only is she an expert, she is also in the thick of it. When we recorded earlier this year, her kiddos were just 2 months old and 3.5. Love this episode. Let's get started. I'm so excited to be here today with Danielle Jackson. She is a certified friendship coach, and she founded Friend Forward, a platform dedicated to teaching women how to create meaningful and sustainable friendships. She has been featured in NBC News for her expertise, and her advice has been quoted in a bunch of different media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and Insider. And I'm just so excited to have you here, Danielle. I feel like we don't talk enough about prioritizing friendship, and it's just so important to elevate and privilege that and talk about it. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it whenever people carve out time to talk about this subject, because like you said, we don't talk about it enough. So thank you for letting me come lend my voice to the conversation.
Of course. And I was just saying before we hit record, I was just down a rabbit hole, a wonderful rabbit hole on your TikTok, listening to your advice there. And I just feel like it's such a great place to go for those quick hits. You're giving really great tips, 1, 2, 3, what can I do to help create and maintain friendships? Has that been a fun new, or maybe not new, maybe it's new to me, maybe you're an expert?
Yeah, no, I joined TikTok during the beginning of the pandemic, like a lot of other 30 plus people. And I was a creeper at first. I wasn't really participating. And then I was like, what the heck? Let me make some videos. And over the past 2 years, it has taken off. It's been so fun. And my favorite part about TikTok is really the comment section, because that's where you really hear what people are going through, and they amen each other. And so it's been really a fun experience hanging out over there.
Well, and one that I just watched was talking about how women have, when they get together in friendship, it actually releases oxytocin, which can then reduce their stress. And I had no idea. You hear about that with babies. Mm-hmm. So this podcast is very geared toward new parenthood and parents. And one of the things you hear is smelling your baby's head or nursing that release oxytocin. And I had no idea that also happens even just when women get together.
Yeah, it's funny because if anything, that should encourage us as parents to get together with our friends, our moms. I hear a lot about, mom guilt, and I have been there myself. I've got 2 little ones, and my youngest is 2 months. So I'm there right now where it feels like everything else is just so much more pressing and urgent. And it is, right? Our kids need us. They need us to breathe and eat and survive. So it's psychologically, it demands a lot. But yeah, research found that, we're all familiar with fight or flight as stress responses. But when they did that study again with women, they found that we have 2 other responses: tend and befriend when we're stressed. So we'll quite literally seek out the company of other women, and it works to reduce cortisol with the stress goods that we've got going on. And so getting together with another woman helps us to de-stress. And so I say that to say, for those of us who are I don't have time to go with my friend, you need it. You need that time. Your kids will be better for it if you go and get that time. So if anything, we need to use that little nugget of research to motivate us to spend time with our friends and be intentional.
And so you said this is your second baby, right?
Yes, my first is 3.5, and our little one's 2 months.
Okay.
And so we're doing all the things.
You're right in the thick of it, because when we had our third, our twins were 3, and I feel like 3 is so much, so much happening at 3. And then when you introduce a new baby in 2, it is 3 amped up even higher.
Yes.
So
what were we thinking? That's on my mind right now. What were we thinking?
I know. I feel like there's a big moment in friendships transitioning from when one of you in the friendship like has a baby. Because as you said, you get really focused, inward focused on the family, on the baby. And that can be a time where it can be hard to maintain friendships you had before the baby arrived. Do you have any tips for like maintaining those connections as you're going through this transition?
Do I have tips? Yes. Okay. So many things. So I know that for moms, like I said, we're in the thick of it and we are baby focused and kid focused as we should be. But unfortunately, we don't pour into the other buckets that we need. I think it starts with the way that we frame friendship in the first place. If we start seeing it as a luxury instead of a necessity, then we'll never get to it. We say we'll get to it when I have time, but we tend to push friendship into the margins of our lives, something we'll get to if we have time, instead of, no, I need this time. And there's just too much research that continues to echo the fact that it is directly impactful to our physical, emotional, and mental health, quite literally. And we see all these health benefits to having a strong support network is how they refer to it in research. I know the big thing is, this is a transition to my friendship. Maybe you're the first person to have kids, or it's having an impact on how you relate to other women. A couple things. The first is you have to rethink the way you see hanging out with friends. If in our mind we see friend time as having a really long brunch on Saturdays, then we are going to say, I don't have time for friends. Because what you really mean is I don't have time to hang out for hours. That's what you really mean. But you do have time for friends. So maybe can we rethink checking in with friends as every Sunday is your laundry night. Can you get on the phone with her for 30 minutes while you fold laundry? Research from, I think, 2020 is showing that just 10 minutes on the phone can boost your mood. We do have 10 minutes if we're honest, So rethinking how you see hanging out. Can you have friends who run errands with you? Like you're going to the grocery store and she comes walk with you for 30 minutes. It's not very sexy, but if that's what it takes to tend to the mundane things of my life, but also see my friend, then that's what it looks like. I don't want to digress too much, but that's where for some women who are like, oh my gosh, I can't invite my friend to errands, then I ask you to think about the quality of your friendships, because why does it have to be such a fancy occasion to get with your friends? Why can't she be comfortable and that be sufficient for her if she just wants to spend time with you? So that's, something to consider. So we have to rethink the way we see hanging out with friends, one. The second tip is, I know this is easier said than done, but to stop getting so nostalgic about what life looks like pre-kids, because I think a lot of us have a dissatisfaction with the current state of our friendships because it's not like it was before, and it will never be like it was before. So I think we need to give our space time to mourn that, to grieve being able to go out on a whim with friends and be spontaneous. I miss that side of myself, but unfortunately right now with little people, I can't do that. But instead of focusing what I can't do, what can friendship look like in this season? And what friends do you have in your network who are willing to evolve with you? Maybe I can't hang out late at night, but are you willing to do phone calls? Are you willing to do Saturdays when we used to do Tuesday nights? Can I do Saturday? So finding the friends who can work with you, but get curious about what it can look like in this season instead of using language like, oh God, I don't even have time for friends. I don't have time to do what I used to do. I'm not who I used to be. Yeah, you're a new you. Friendships look a little different. It's just a season. The older they get, the easier it gets a little bit. But those are some things that we can do to kind of become more satisfied with the current state of our friendships, is to rethink the way it looks to hang out, to think about the time that we do have available, and to stop comparing our current friendships to what we had before, because they will never be the same. I think those two things kind of help us get a little more satisfaction with where we are right now.
I love that. I actually recently went and played paddle tennis, which I had never done in my life. But my friend Kate, who I love, but I hadn't gotten to hang out with, that was part of her life. Like, she plays paddle tennis. She invited me along, and I was able to say yes to that and think of it. It was like a daytime while my kids were napping activity that we could do together. If in another world, we would normally be like getting together for dinner and drinks. So I love that advice of thinking through. I also love the idea of phone calls. I think almost with COVID, I've gotten so moved toward like Zoom video calls, But actually, it's so smart to just like, I used to chat with my friends for hours, like when I was in high school, like just talk on the phone while you're doing laundry, doing the dishes. That's going to make it so much more fun too.
Yeah, and it sounds like such a basic piece of advice, like hop on the phone. But to your point, like with Zoom, even with our friends, it can be a little like, we've got to set up a whole Zoom call. But especially for moms, sometimes it helps to be mobile. I need my hands to be free. I need to move around, or I'm trying to get the baby to sleep and I'm rocking her while we're talking, and it's not conducive to sitting down on video. And so, can we bring that back for moms? That might be ideal. Or can we use, certain apps that allow us to use send voice notes back and forth so that I can send you a message when I have the time, and we can keep that going all day. I don't have to sit down and type through my texts and my thoughts. I can just send a quick little note while I'm watching my kids at the playground, and we can go back and forth throughout the day when it's convenient. So can we get creative about what it looks like to maintain those conversations?
So I know that you also help women. So not only maintaining friendships, but also working through conflicts in friendships. If you want to reconnect with someone or kind of broach that, I know sometimes I just like try to avoid it, and that's not not the right approach. What are some ways to start talking that through without maybe making it, I feel like I'm always afraid it's like, oh, I don't want to make this too big of a thing, but you're sensing that conflict there and you want to resolve it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're touching on this, because my big argument, I say this all the time, is that I believe that too many female friendships specifically are ending prematurely because we won't have a conversation, or because it gets awkward and so we don't address it, but then we'll tell our husband about it and we tell our other friends about it, but we're not going to tell her, and we gradually fade out until the relationship's done, and we could have saved it by just bringing it up. I know even some of us, even when we hear that word conflict, because of how we approach conflict in our home growing up, maybe we don't have a good attitude toward it, so we want to avoid it at all costs. A lot of us do. And there are many reasons we avoid it. We think of conflict itself as bad, or for a lot of us, we think we're doing something noble. Like, well, I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to bring it up. But the thing is, it's not going to go away. Whatever that little pinch is that kind of rubs you the wrong way is not going away. So you get to choose how you want it to be expressed, and hopefully in a healthy way, which is by addressing it with love, with humor. I think a lot of us don't realize like it can be playful. So my suggestions there are, one, to bring it up as soon as possible. Now this might seem counterintuitive because we say, well, when it gets like really big, I'll say something. I'm not going to say something over this little thing, but it's easier when it's smaller, because then you can infuse humor that's appropriate, or you can make it just like a matter of fact statement and keep rolling. The longer you wait, the harder it is, and the more formal it feels like the talk has to be, because inside you've been letting it go on for like 6 months. So whether it's a certain phrase that she says that rubs you the wrong way, or she's always canceling plans, but you keep minimizing it in your head, it's like, it's not, I don't want to make a big deal. I sympathize with that argument, but at the same time, the first time, or maybe even the second time she's late and you see that it actually is a pattern, to say something to the effect of like, it can be playful and say, okay, girl, now when you're late, it makes me anxious. I'm in here sitting waiting on you now. It can be playful. It doesn't have to be, can we talk about how you've been late the past 4 times? It feels really intense. So even joking and saying like, okay, now what am I supposed to do while I wait for you for 30 minutes? Now read a book. What do you want me to do? Or maybe it can be something where you're like, whenever you're running behind, it kind of throws off my plan for the rest of the night, and I can't hang like I used to. So, I got 90 minutes on the clock, so it can be playful and she can receive it better that way. If you do decide that it's something you're going to address, I always like to say to focus on observable behavior, because we can get lost in the weeds when you start talking about how you feel, and how you feel is important. But as much as you can hit on the facts, I feel like it makes people less likely to be defensive, because you can't really contest that. So if we're going with the being late example, let's say you have a friend, you guys arrange play dates, she brings the kids late, she shows up late, and it just kind of makes you start to feel like she's either taking advantage or not respecting your time, and you feel a little resentment bubbling up, things like that. To focus on observable behavior. So maybe I'll say like, I know the last 2 times you were kind of running behind a little bit, and then you always want to follow up with something that's a collaborative problem solving approach. So what can we do? Is it because, the play dates are too far away? Do you want to do things closer to your home? Or should we stop doing evening stuff altogether and do like breakfast time stuff? So I'm trying to show you that this thing is not really cool, but I'm here to work with you. How can we make it better? As opposed to accusatory, like, hey, you've been late like the past couple times, and it's just, it makes me feel like you don't even care about my time. or I can't do this if we're going to be late. I mean, anybody's going to defend themselves or explain why they were late. And I always like to suggest, if it's a really intense conversation, something really big, to lead with the very reason why you were hesitant to have the conversation in the first place. Is just a little hack that I've noticed helps. So, I like to do this exercise with clients. I'll say, why are you hesitant to even talk to her? They'll tell me what that is. They'll either say something like, oh, well, I don't want her to go and tell the rest of the ladies and make it a drama kind of situation. Or they'll say, because I don't want to like hurt her feelings, or I don't want it to be like awkward. I think that should be your very first sentence. So I'll start by saying like, hey, Christy, I was actually avoiding this conversation because the last thing I want is for it to be like weird between us or like drama with the ladies. But then I thought like, no, look, I love our friendship and I feel like I should be able to share this. So let me raise this with you for a second, so it just gets her to buy in and it has you leading with vulnerability. So people kind of want to match that. And so those are just a few tips because conflict is inevitable. Healthy conflict is inevitable. But I challenge women who are listening to think about how many friendships of yours have gradually faded away that you probably could have saved if you just playfully said to her, hey, what happened the other day wasn't cool. Let's talk about it. And then let's just keep on moving forward. Let's just keep it moving. I think a lot of us could have had friendships that stood the test of time if we were willing.
I had a friend who I really hurt her feelings. It was not intentional. And I had no idea that like that was the trigger that made us kind of start to get some distance. I was just like, oh, we're both busy. Like I didn't really. And she eventually just texted me kind of out of the blue with what I had done. And I was so thankful to her because I was just letting it kind of fade out. And she taking that step of like being vulnerable and sharing with me what I had done, I was like, oh, now I have a chance to, apologize and explain where I was coming from. And then I also really appreciated what she did was like in that same conversation, she then was like, okay, yeah, let's like make our next plan. Even in that conversation, she was willing to then be like she was ready to like hear my apology. And she was then ready to like, okay, let's get together for dinner next month or whatever. So I think maybe if you do have something on your mind, it actually, as much as you're like afraid to have that conversation, it's actually a huge gift to the other person if they're also open to it because you're saving that friendship, just like you said.
I love your example and thank you for sharing that because it's such a testament to how conflict can be a good thing. I mean, even hearing you say that you were grateful for it, like, oh my God, thank you. It gives me a chance to self-correct. It lets me know really what your boundaries are. I mean, I need a friend to tell me what I said was not okay so that I know, oh, okay, these are the lines that we can play with it. I always say, it's kind of like if I'm playing a new game or something and I keep going out of bounds, but nobody's telling me, it's like, I mean, I want to play the game, right? Don't have me out here looking silly, but I can't do it unless you tell me, oh, by the way, like you can't go past this line or this line. You have to play the game in here. Oh, thank you. Now I can play the game right. And so, having a friend give you that data, hey, this wasn't cool, should be something that the way you received it is ideal. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I applaud her for saying, okay, now what are we doing next to show you, to give you a demonstration of, I want to move forward in the same conversation is awesome. You guys just gave us a master class. That's how it's done.
As I'm a mom and my kids are starting in like preschool and now I have a couple kindergartners, you're always in these social settings and less so with COVID, but I feel like it's opening up again, right? The potluck at their school or you're at the playground for a play date. And I'm like, I somehow want to telegraph that I'm like open to new friends, but I'm sometimes a little like shy to go up to people. I'm a little awkward. So do you have some tips to share to kind of help create these new relationships as you're moving into this new stage of life?
Yeah. I would have to say that that's hands down the number one request as a friendship coach is how do I make friends? And I always say it typically comes with some kind of qualifier. So it's, how do I make friends as a new mom, as a military spouse, as somebody in a new city, which I hope shows us that we will always be having to make new friends. It's not something that stops once you get out of college, And so the key word there that I want us to all lean in on is making. It is a process and it takes time. And I think so many of us, I don't know that we'd admit it, have the fantasy still of, waiting in line at the coffee shop and the girl behind us says something funny and we're like, oh my God, haha. Oh, God. Do you want to exchange numbers? Yeah. And then you're best friends. I think we have that fantasy. So whenever we see that, we just smile with somebody or make a quick comment and then it doesn't immediately go into a friendship, we're disappointed or we're like, oh, this is hard or that was awkward and we're discouraged, but it's making a friend. It's a process. It takes time. And I think as soon as we lean in on that, it'll release some of that pressure. The first thing I always say is for some of us, when we say, I want to make new friends, we're using that synonymously with I want to meet new people. And the two are not necessarily the same. Making friends refers to the art of cultivating something meaningful with another person. And who says you have to start from scratch? A lot of us have some people who we know of who would make good friends, who maybe we've casted off for whatever reason. She's too old. She's not a mom. She can't get me. Whatever it is, she's too nerdy. She's not nerdy enough. We have reasons for why these people we do know who are potentially good candidates, we've dismissed because we want to start with somebody new from scratch. And so the first thing I'd say is, can you train your eyes to see this person in a new way? Like, what if she was a potential friend? Would you treat her differently? Would you reach out to initiate something more? Would you integrate new topics in the conversation if you entertained her as a possible friend instead of like just a neighbor or just your kid's friend's mom? So start with changing your mindset with the people you already know. The second thing is, especially as moms, some of us already have this. I always like to say integrate routine into your day or your week. So I know routine is not a very sexy word, but we make friends through repetition. A lot of times that's why we make friends with our neighbors and our classmates when we were younger, because we saw them all the time. And so how can I integrate more routine into my life? We're already probably picking up our kids at the same time every day, but do we see that as a social opportunity? Or do we have our head down in the phone? I'm just here to get my kid and go. A lot of us we navigate life that way. I'm just here to do this thing and then I'm going home. But if we stop seeing making friends like we're going to a party and it's like a big social event, that's what we think of. Like when you dream of the next scenario where you're making a friend, it's at like some cool hip party and you start chatting them up, but it's actually you sitting in the playground watching your kid and the mom next to you says something and before you know it, you're chatting. It's actually you waiting in the pickup line outside with a coffee, and instead of being in your phone striking up a conversation with a woman who's also waiting. It lives in the unlikeliest places. So I think if we start training ourselves to see opportunity, waiting in line, things like that, or being in the coffee shop, I think if we started seeing all of that as potential, we'll stop saying things like, oh my God, it's so hard to meet people. It's actually everywhere. But how are you positioning yourself? Are you approachable? Are your eyes out of the phone? Are you, smiling in a way that doesn't look super creepy, but like, do you look pleasant? Or are you sending a vibe that says, I'm busy. Don't talk to me. I'm on the phone. I'm really engrossed with my kids right now. Like, are you sending vibes when you go out that you are not available? Why would anybody come up and do what they see as interruption? So some of us, we're not even approachable unintentionally. And then the last thing I would say, because I have strategies for days, but the last thing I would say is to make your desire known. I think so many of us are scared, especially as adults, to look desperate if we say I'm looking for friends, or we feel a shame around not having friends by a certain age. Like, oh, everybody else has their friends. Am I really going to admit and confess that I don't have a group? There's so much shame around that, but you cannot get the help you need if you don't make it known. It doesn't necessarily have to be worded like, hey guys, I need friends. Can you help me? It can be something a little smoother. It can be you contacting a person who you know is an extrovert and they're always out and about doing stuff. Somebody, I refer to these as our super connector friends, people who know everyone and they're happy to bring two people together. That person, why not text that person and say, hey, I'm trying to get a little more connected or a little more plugged in, and I thought of you. You're always out and about and you've got a squad with you everywhere you go. So I thought you're the perfect person to ask, is there anything around here you feel like it's worth checking out? Or any groups you know of that are like worth my time? Like you could do it in a cool way. Like, I could take it or leave it. Do you know of anything? And that person most times is so happy to help and so happy that you value their opinion, but we're so scared to make it known because how will we look? I mean, you can even go as far as to post on social media and say, hey, I'm new to town or trying to make mom friends. Where are you guys meeting people these days? I mean, it can be a cool matter-of-fact thing. And when you make it known, people are eager to share their 2 cents. And so that's something that's so simple. But the first thing I'd say, if you're like, I want to be intentional about making friends, is to tell other people. because it's likely that 95% of them feel the exact same way if only we would make our desires known. So I think between those three things, first, looking at the community you already have for potential friends, 2, integrating a little more routine and keeping your head up when you're outside, and 3, making your desire known. I think those are 3 things to get us started on our way toward making new friends.
Yeah, those are all super actionable steps I'm going to take myself. So I appreciate that. And before we go, Danielle, I want to make sure that listeners know all the places to find you. So can you share like where you are? I know you have a website, TikTok, Instagram. Can you share all those things?
Yeah, so everything mostly lives on our website at betterfemalefriendships.com. That's all the things. But if you're a TikTok mom who scrolls late at night when the kids are finally quiet and asleep, then you'll find me on there at The Friendship Expert over on TikTok, where we're having a good time. And so, being a friendship coach is seemingly an odd thing. It's been the most fun I've ever had, and such an honor for women to bring me in on very personal things they're struggling with that they feel like they can't really talk to other people about, and entrusting me with that is a blessing. I don't take that for granted. And so, if you're listening and you're like, maybe I could use a session or whatever, I'd love to see you over at betterfemalefriendships.com. But I thank you for carving out time to have this conversation, because I know it's so needed.
Thank you so much. And also congratulations. I saw you just signed a book deal too. So soon we'll have some of these tips in print.
Yes, I am so thrilled. That is such a blessing, and it's so random the way that it happened. But yeah, it's tentatively titled Fighting for Our Friendships, and it's all about conflict in female friendship, how it can be a good thing, how we can make it playful, and how if we want richer friendships, we have to figure out how to attack the hard stuff. And so I think it's going to be really good, and I can't wait to get it in your hands in 2024.
I can't wait. That's amazing. Well, congratulations, and thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect here.
Thank you for having me.
Today We Tried is brought to you by Colugo, a baby gear brand founded by parents for parents. I'm your host, Christy, and our producer is Mike Pilak. Stay tuned for more, and in the meantime, remember, you got this, and we've got you.